Welcome back to Drafting with Mark, and in this video it's going to be a continuation of this one that we already started working on. So at the end of this video I will link the 2D of me drafting this one, but in this one we're going to do it using 3D AutoCAD. Another feature that I'm also going to do is that I'm going to create these as two separate parts, and when I come to the drafting portion of it I'm going to create 3 pages, right? On the first page it should have just an isometric, and I will create a title block, or I'm sorry, not a title block, a bill of material for it. So we will show you how to do that if you never used tables or something of that nature before. And on page 2 and 3, I'm going to have each one of these parts separated, right? I don't know how much detailing as far as dimensioning and things of that nature I'll go into, but these dimensions are really simple. So I plan on doing all of that in this video. So let's go ahead and jump over to AutoCAD and get started. Okay, so we're going to continue doing this one in metric, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'll select the new icon here. And what that's going to do is bring open the dialog box that I'm going to select the ISO standard. So once again, I'm referring back to that first video of this one that I made when I was showing you how to create things in metric. So I will be selecting this template. Let's go ahead and hit open. And what that does is automatically sets AutoCAD up in millimeters, and it should also set it up in first angle projection. So we'll take a look at that when we get to the drafting portion of this. Alright, so we're going to do some 3D modeling, right? You know what I always like to do first is I'll go ahead and turn the grid off. I'll turn my ortho on, and then let's go ahead and take a look at the running O-snaps, which are going to be here. The next thing I'm going to do is already switch this over to the 3D mode, since that's what we're going to be working on. So I'll select the little gear here and go to 3D modeling. Alright, let's go ahead and give it a second, and it should change our ribbon and load up. And I will also close the current dialog box that is here. Let's go ahead and close that. Alright, so like I say, the modeling on this was going to go super fast, right? And it's going to work almost the same as what you see me create when I did the 2D drafting of this. Alright, so we're going to start off with a circle, and I will be using the shortcut commands for this, so I'll try to explain to you. And this is going to be a lot quicker than if I'm going up here and picking the icons. So I'll start off with C, enter. I'll pick a base point, which is here. I always kind of preview my circles, and then I'll type in 20 as the radius, right? Let's zoom into that, and we can double click the middle mouse wheel, or I'll just click the zoom extents, and let's back away a little bit. Alright, next we're going to go back to the circle command, so C, enter. I'll go ahead and find the center here, touch it, and then I just want to get the green tracking lines off of it, right? So once I have those green tracking lines, I'll type in the distance that I want it to track away from it, which is going to be the 30. Go ahead and hit enter, and then it's asking me what's the radius. In this case, it'll be 10. Alright, I'll just go ahead and mirror that to the other side. But first, before I do that, let's go ahead and put the tangent lines on here first, and then that'll save us a step from having to do this again. So let's start with the line command. So L, enter. And this time I'll type in the running O-snaps, or in this case the O-snaps that I want to use. So I'll type in TAN, and that stands for tangent. Go ahead and hit enter. I'll track along this side and do a left click here. TAN again, and then hit enter. And then I'll go ahead and click here. Let's go ahead and escape from that. Now we can use the mirror command, so MI, enter. Select the line you just created. Go ahead and hit enter. Go from this quadrant, and I'll just go straight across to this quadrant. Go ahead and hit enter. Let's go back to the mirror command, right? So I'll just hit enter, because that was the last command I used. I'll select these 3 objects. Go ahead and hit enter. Select this quadrant, and then go up to the top quadrant. Go ahead and hit enter. Alright, let's go ahead and trim this. So TR, enter. I'm just going to do a line going straight across here. And then I'll come back with another one. So all I'm doing is doing one left click, come right across, and then another left click, right? And that gets rid of all of that for us. Let's go ahead and hit escape. Let's highlight all of this. And then type in J, enter. That J stands for join, right? So we have this part created. Now we're going to be using this a couple of different times. Let's go ahead and put our circles on the inside of this. So I'll go to C, enter. Once again, find the center of my big one here. Do a left click on here. Start previewing my circle. And then I want to put a diameter here, right? So I'll type in D, enter. That stands for the diameter. And then I'll type in the diameter of this circle, which is going to be 20. Go ahead and hit the enter button again to take you back to the last command. I'll go ahead and find the center. Do a left click on here. Start previewing it. Type in D, enter. And then I'll type in the diameter, which is going to be 31.3. Let's go ahead and put the ones on the outside here. So back to C, enter. Find the center. Go ahead and left click on it. Give it a preview. Type in D, enter. Then I have 15. And then I'll go back to the circle command just by hitting enter. Go find the center. I'm just going to give it a little preview. Type in D, enter. And the diameter of this one should be 10. Let's go ahead and mirror this across like we did before. So just MI, enter. Select these two objects here from this quadrant, going straight down to this quadrant. All right, so we got almost everything that we need done to create this. Well, actually both of these 3D parts. So what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to select all of this and I'll choose copy, right? So CO, enter, pick a base point here and come straight down. All right, so this is the top portion. This is going to be my bottom portion. Now, if you remember with the bottom portion, we don't need these outside rings around. So I'll just go ahead and delete each one of these circles here. All right, so now we have everything that we need now to create our part. Let's go ahead and take a look at this in an isometric view. So I'll select here. It's going to change the view of it. And next I want to extrude. So when I'm extruding this, I'll start with this one. I'll extrude this one down 10 as well as this one down 10. They do have the same thickness. So let's go ahead and choose that. Extrude. Let's just select both of these outside components. Go ahead and hit enter. I'm going to move my cursor down going this direction. And once I have it going the right vector or right location, I'm just trying to send it down. I'll go ahead and type in 10. All right, so you do indeed see those went down 10. Let's go back to this command. So I'll just hit enter. That's going to take me back to the extrude command. Let's start working on these two circles here. So I'll go here and these two. Go ahead and hit enter. I'm going to send these up, so I'm going the right direction. I'll type in 3, enter. And those went up a distance of 3. Now I'm going to have to come back and do a little bit more work on those, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that here in a second. Now with the bottom ones here, let's go back to the extrude command. So extrude. I'll select these 3 circles. And I accidentally selected the wrong one on the outside. I'll just hold down the shift button and do a left click on this outside to deselect. Go ahead and hit enter. Go ahead and give it a direction. And then this has a height of 20. So make sure I'm facing it or pointing it up. Now the bottom here is ready to go as is, right? So we can go ahead and use the union command. So that's union. And I select all of these. All right, so this is all one piece now, right? So I can go ahead and move this. So I just selected it, hit M, enter. And I should be able to move them, and it looks like it didn't actually join those together. Let's try that again. Let's escape out of that. Let's go back to union. Let's go ahead and select all 4 of these objects. Oh, there we go. Go ahead and hit enter. All right, so now all of these should be as one. Let's go ahead and move this to the side. And then we're going to start working with these, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'll go to union. I'll select this big outside surface here. And then I'll select each one of these cylinders. Go ahead and hit enter. Right? So all of this should be highlighted, just not the inside circles there. Let's go ahead and escape out of that. And then we'll use the press pull option here. So I'll go to press pull. What I'll do is find the bottom circle here. And this is where you got to kind of be careful. I only have the bottom one highlighted. and it seems like it still want to select both of them. Let's go ahead and hit escape. Let's try press pull again. And if it's not going to let me press pull, I do have another option here. So I want to press pull that bottom face here. There we go. And then I'll bring this down, and just long as it's extending past it, it should be fine. And it looks like it didn't take it. Let's see one more time. Come down below it, do a left click. Okay. So if it's not going to take it, I'm not going to worry about it too much. I'll show you another option of getting rid of that. Let's go ahead and subtract this, right? Let's take a look at this in shades of gray before we can really see it. Let's go to shades of gray, and you're going to see that all of these are solid. Let's choose the subtract option. I'll go ahead and select the part I want to keep first, then hit enter. And now I need to subtract these little cylinders on the inside. Now once again, you can see I did select all of it. Let's go ahead and hold down the shift button and deselect. This is going to be probably the weirdest part about selecting these. The easiest way of doing this, and if you're not able to select those cylinders on the inside, is get this out of shades of gray. So I'll escape out of this command, and I'll go ahead and put it in the wireframe. And then when I choose the subtract option, I'll select the outside that I want to keep first. Go ahead and hit enter. And then selecting these inside cylinders should become a lot easier for you to select. Right? So that's kind of the tip of being able to select those inside cylinders. Once I have them selected, go ahead and hit enter. And now when I take a look at this in shades of gray, it should show that I do have a cutout going only through the top portion. Now I'll try the press and pull again, and if this doesn't work, I'll just put another cylinder there and subtract it through, but I'm hopefully that this will work. So if I go to press pull, I want to get to that inside surface, which is here, and I want to pull this through here. And you see that now it actually subtracted that from it as well. Let's go and take a look at here. I'm only clicking on this inside one. Let's go ahead and take a look at this in wireframe so you really see the only surface that I'm trying to select here. And then I'll go back to my press pull. Let me zoom into this. And then you're going to see that when I move my cursor around, I only want this blue circle here. Let's do a left click here and bring it downward to cut through. Same thing here. So back to the press pull, right? I'm highlighting just that bottom face. Click there and then bring it through. All right. So now that we have this done, we're able to put these two together now, right? Let's go ahead and escape out of this command. Let's use the move command. So a regular move. I'll select this object here. Go ahead and hit enter. I'll use the center at the bottom of this cylinder. Go ahead and click there. And then I'll place it onto this cylinder here. All right, let's go ahead and zoom the extents and take a look at this in shades of gray. And hopefully we should have it looking exactly like I want it to in my 2D drawing, right? So this is all that we needed to do in order to complete this for the modeling part. So modeling is simple, long as you got a plan of how you want to do this. Kind of some other neat features that you can play around with is if you want to kind of move this around and kind of see it actually going through it, I can use my move gizmo here. And I can select here, and I'll select this purple axis. And then you can see that as I move this down, you can see that those actually will stick up through it, right? I'm just going to undo that step just to take it back up. Okay, so this is actually completed. Let's switch over to the drafting portion now and see how this is going to behave. All right, so I'll jump over to the layout tab 1. And we're going to have to decide what size title block that we're going to use, right? Now, remember that this is metric, and let's go ahead and find a metric component that we're going to do. We can use the A3 again as if we used into the 2D drafting one. And remember those dimensions, if I'm not mistaken, are 400 by 297. So let's go ahead and use that one. So I'll start off with a rectangle. Shortcut for rectangle is REC. Enter. Lower left corner will be at 0, 0, enter. And the upper right will be at 400, 297. Let's zoom the extents. Let's go ahead and delete that viewport. And then we're going to offset. So O enter, a distance of 6. And I'll just offset this to the inside. Since we're here, let's go ahead and make the paper match and go ahead and knock that out of the way here. So I'll go ahead and do a right click on this layout 1. And then I'll choose Page Setup Manager. And this is going to be kind of different than what we typically been doing, but the process is still the same, right? So I'll go to Modify. Select in the drop down. I'll still choose the DWG to PDF. Now this is where it's different at. I'll choose a ANSI. Sorry, not ANSI, a ISO. I'm just kind of zooming up to see if they have an ISO full bleed option, which I don't see one. But I'm going to use an A3, and you can see that that number is actually 420. So I'll have to go back and adjust that. But I'm going to use an A3 format, the 420 by 297. Go ahead and select that. Tell it that we want to use the extents. We can leave it at 1:1. We don't have to worry about fitting this. We do want to center it. And go ahead and hit OK. I'm just going to remember that it's 420 by 297. Let's hit OK. And then hit close. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I'll go ahead and delete my rectangle here. And then I'll go ahead and put it back. So I'll type in REC, enter. 0, 0, enter. 420, 297. Enter. Let's go ahead and offset. So O enter. 6, enter. Click here. Come to here. Alright, let's double click. And now we just got to readjust this, right? So we'll go to the layout 1, do a right click. Let's go to Page Setup Manager again. Go ahead and hit Modify. And I shouldn't have to do anything here. Let's take a look at the preview of it. Alright, that looks a lot better. Go ahead and hit the exit button. And let's see what happens when I hit OK and close. Alright, so it did update, right? Now, to make things a little bit better, I can always choose when I'm doing this is that, let's go back to this layout 1. Let me go back to the Page Setup Manager. If you want it to be really accurate, and let's go back to Modify. Inside of here, and you don't want to see that when I do the preview, and you see that I'll get occasionally some vertical lines and stuff of that nature. So you see these vertical lines. If you don't like seeing those, another option that you can do, and I'll just go ahead and hit the escape button, is that instead of using the extents, go ahead and use Window, and then select this inside rectangle, right? So I'll click that endpoint and come down to this endpoint and go ahead and hit OK and close. So that will actually print a lot better because you won't get to see those vertical lines there on the side. All right, let's go ahead and start selecting and bringing in our drawing now. Let's go ahead and choose Base from Model Space. And I'll go ahead and give it a second here. And depending on how your isometric look, we might have to go back into the drawing and rotate it, right? And I will kind of say sorry a little bit. It's going to take a little bit longer on this one. Okay, there we go. And let's take a look at the isometric views that we have. So if I click on Southeast, it should be the north ones. So I'll use the Northeast isometric. Go ahead and click here and go ahead and hit enter, right? Right click and tell it that you are done with it. So this is going to be my overall view. I want to make this a little bit bigger, so I can either just select the icon and then select this fly down, and then from here I can start adjusting this, right? So I can make it 4 times as big. Let's see what 2 times as big look like. Okay, and that's okay. Or we can do some kind of customized scaling. Another way of doing this is if you select it here, and you can also go to Edit View. And when you bring up this dialog box, this is the only thing that I'm adjusting is here, right? You can also see that if I select the word scale, I can type in a physical scale. So if I want it to be 3 times as big, I can do it that way as well, and then that'll give me a much bigger picture of what I do need. Alright, so I'll hit OK. Well, before I do that, let's go ahead and make this on a shaded with visible lines, and then tell it to be OK. Alright, so this is a really good representation of the overall drawing that I want. I'll just go ahead and move this over a little bit. Next thing I'm going to do is I'll just go ahead and put in a bill of material, and this is not going to be anything super special or, you know, out of the ordinary here. I'll go over here to where it says annotation, and then here's my table. Some of the things I want to do is go and take a look at the table style, and this is where I can adjust the height and things of that nature, right? So I'm using the standard. Let's take a look and modify this. All right. So what we have here is we can tell it what orientation. Do we want our title block to go from the bottom up, or do we want it to go from the, you know, top down? And that's what this direction here is telling me. So if I tell it to be up, you can see here in the graphics that the title is at the bottom, and then we have our headers and things of that nature. What we have here is the cells, how we want to kind of adjust these cells. So if I want my data cells to be a different text height, right? So you can see that I'm in data and the text height is sitting at 4.5. I can adjust this if I want to, and it's only going to refer to the data cells. Likewise, if I wanted to adjust the headers, I'll go to the headers and I'll check on this text tab, and you can see that that's the same height. And then if I take a look at the title, you can see that that is set to 6. All right. So these are ways that you can change that or kind of customize this however you want. And you do have the border where if you don't want some of these lines to appear, you can do all of that stuff. But what I'm going to do is just leave it in the up direction, and I'll leave it like this. All right. Go ahead and hit OK and then close. Next, let's go ahead and insert in our table. So we're going to select this icon here. When this comes up, we should be greeted with another dialog box, and this is where we're going to choose the columns and things of that nature we want, right? Now, remember that when we're doing this, when it says data rows, it's only referring to these rows here. No matter if you change this first header row to a data row, it's still going to only account from the first, the second. It's going to start here from the third row up, right? So it's only going to account for data rows. What we're going to use here is we're going to need 2 data rows. And then we got to figure out how many columns we're going to need. So this is kind of where you're going to, depending on what kind of format or how you like your bill of materials look. Most people will have a quantity on it, so that's 1. We'll usually have a unit of measurement that's behind it, so that's going to be the second thing, followed by a description, and then we'll have an item number. So that's typically 4 of them that you're going to have. Now, some companies may also have a part number, and we can make that as 5. So we'll go ahead and leave it as 5, and then we will name each one of those parts, right? Let's go ahead and hit OK. And then what should be happening is that we should have a table following us around, right? I'm just going to go ahead and click this table here for right now, and then we'll adjust it later. So here at the bottom, I'll go ahead and type in what I want this to be. Let me back up and turn the caps lock on, and I'll just call this parts list. Okay, so here in the first column here, I'll go ahead and what I did is actually clicked out of it. But here, I'll go ahead and type in, this is what I want to be the, let's see, quantity. So let's call it QTY. Right, the next one here. And I keep accidentally clicking off of it, and I just mean to hit the left arrow. Inside of this one, let's see what we're going to type in. Let's go ahead and type in unit of measurement. So that's just UM. I'll use the arrow this time to go over to the right side. This one we can go with, let's call it part number. This next one we'll call a description. And then finally, we'll call this the item number, right? So these are going to be just some standard stuff that we're going to do. All right. So in all of these, and if we go 1, and this is just going to count up to 2. In the description, I'm just going to put part or some of that nature. So description, depending on which item you want to be the one, let's just call this top plate. And then I'm just using the up arrow to go to the one above it, and let's call this bottom plate. Then we'll take a look at giving this a part number. Let's go ahead and click over here. And just for a rough part number, we can give it any number that we want. You know what? Let's start over on this side. And I'll go ahead and start typing in the quantities, which is going to be 1 at the bottom there, 1 here. Each one of these will be each. There we go. And the part number here, let's just make it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's make it till 4. And then on the top here, let's make this number, let's say 5, 6, 7, 8, right? So this is just kind of a rough parts list that we need, just some generic stuff. And then we can start kind of playing with this and shrinking some of these columns down, right? So if I select in here and I select the A column here, that's only going to apply to all of this in the A column. I'll go ahead and stretch this over. And what I'm trying to do is stop my O snaps from pulling this back. Another option we can do is simply turn our O snaps off. And then that's going to allow me more free range to kind of move this over. While I have this column situated, I'll go ahead and set the alignment to middle center. Then we're going to also take a look at the unit of measurement. So I'll select the B column here. Go ahead and stretch this over. And now we can stretch them over at the same time. So for example, I can select both of these columns. I'll just hold down the control button here. I think it's the shift or the control. It's the shift button. And now you're going to see that it will adjust these both at the same length, right? So that's one of the ways that you can do that. Okay, so we can adjust these columns as we see fit. If you want to work on the whole entire parts list, right, you can always click on this bottom corner here and that will select everything. And once I do it this way, so for example, if I want everything in here to be middle center, I can go ahead and select it there and it will adjust all of these as once, right? So that's kind of some ways how you can kind of customize and make your parts list look a little bit better, or however the way you want it to look. All right, so let's go ahead and move this. So now that I'm done with all this, all I'm going to do is come down here and do a left click here at the bottom here. Let's escape. I'll go with the move command, so enter, select my parts list, go ahead and hit enter. And then I'll select the corner here at the bottom left, right? Sorry, at the bottom right. Let's go ahead and turn our running O snaps back on. And then I should be able to select that endpoint here and place that endpoint down here at the bottom. So let's go ahead and move this now. So we're going to select here. We'll select the square in the middle. We might have to turn our ortho off to give us just a little bit more play. And then we can go ahead and put some bubbles on this, right? And I don't know how many videos I have showing you how to use multi-leaders or even how to set them up. But I'll show you that now. So here's the multi-leaders. What I'm going to do is select this drop down here. That's going to bring me to the multi-leader style, right? It's going to bring open another dialog box. What I'm going to do is create a new one. So I'm just going to go to new. I'll call this balloon. Let's go ahead and hit continue. And then we have to figure out how we want to adjust this, right? And I'm sorry, it keeps jumping over to my other screen here. I'll start with the content tab first, and then I'll choose the word block. Underneath here, it has some standard blocks that I need. So if I want to use this one, let's go ahead and use this call out. So this is going to call whatever view it is and whatever sheet number it is, right? And then we can take a look at some of the other stuff. How do we want the attachment to be, right? So I want this to be on the center, and that's going to be fine for what we need. The scale should be fine in this one. And what this is that if I want to make this a little bit bigger, so if this is only going to apply to my balloon. So if I make this twice as big just to show you what it's going to actually do, you see that only my balloon gets bigger, right? So let's play around with this and let's make it 1.5 just to make it a little bit bigger. Let's take a look at our leader structure. So this tells me how many points that I want to select. So when I'm creating a leader, I'll have to click a start point and then another point, and then it will invoke the bubble or the balloon at the end of it. If I have a certain distance that I want to set things at, I can set it here, right? So this is my landing length, and this is one of those things that if you're a person that likes everything to look the same, it's really good to set this number up, right? So let's go ahead and make this a little bit smaller at 6. And then here is if we wasn't using this in paper space, so if we're using stuff in model space and we are doing it manually, we can set up whatever that is here. You also have an option to use it annotative. So if you're going to use the annotative scale at the bottom in model space, this is where you would check this box. But since we're using paper space, leave it set to 1. Here in the leader format, this is stuff that you would typically set up if you have different arrowheads or some along that line, or if you maybe even wanted this to be a spline or something along that nature. So you get a curved line here, right? But what we're going to do is keep it as straight lines. Then we'll hit OK. Then let's go ahead and close this, right? So now when I use this, I have a balloon here sitting at the top. That's going to be the one that I use. If I want to use another one, you can always select in the drop down and pick whichever one of these you want to use. Alright, so balloon is mine. Current one, I'll go ahead and select multi-leader. I'll select this midpoint here, and let's go ahead and click it here. So remember, I had it set to 2, and then here is my view number and the scale, right? So this is item number 1, and let's go ahead and make this on sheet number 02. Hit OK. And you can see how big this is, and if I don't like it that big, here's another benefit of the multi-leader style. So if I come here, and I'm just going to bring this back open, let's go to modify, and then we're going to go to the content, and let's make this number back to being 1. And when I get OK, and then I'll hit close, let's see, the next time I come in here, it should make it that much smaller. Now, one of those things I wish it did was I wish that it automatically updated that. So if I make it 1 and I hit tab 02, I'll be able to do that. Okay. Let's go ahead and delete the one that's a little bit bigger here. All right. Another way that you can do things on this, and why I like multi-leaders, and I'm just going to play around with them for a second here, is that I can make another arrowhead on here, right? So let's go ahead and add a leader to this. Let's go ahead and select this multi-leader, and let's go ahead and put that over here. Let's go ahead and hit escape. And with multi-leaders, really neat feature about them is that if I select here, and let's go ahead and select the square, and take a look at what happens when I drag this along the other side, you will see that it will automatically adjust that landing, right? Say if I wanted to put this in the middle, it'll grab them and put them on both sides. Other things that I can do with them is I can also stack them, and I can do, I can align them, and that's what these options here are telling me. So if I want to remove a leader, I have to use this icon here and go to remove leader. Select this multi-leader here, and then I'll select that leader. Go ahead and hit enter, and it's gone, right? So they're really versatile. Let's go ahead and move this back and place it here. Let's go ahead and place the bottom one on. So let's go ahead and escape out of this. Go back to multi-leader. Select that midpoint, go ahead and place it here. And then I'll type in this one as 02. No, not 02, sorry. It should be 2. And then I'll put this on sheet 03. There we go. Looks a lot better. All right, so this matches now my parts list. So now item number 1 is going to be my top plate. It's sitting here, and it's on sheet number 2. Item number 2 is going to be my bottom plate, and it's on sheet number 3. Right? Let's go ahead and rename these, right? And let's go ahead and select here, and it should have a rename option, which is located here, and just call it sheet. And I keep forgetting my cap lock is on. Sheet number 1. All right, so I'm actually done with sheet number 1. Let's go ahead and start sheet number 2. And here's another little neat feature that you can do. You can either click on this layout too, and then you can start doing all that again by placing in or creating a title block and doing all of the other stuff. Or let's come back to sheet 1. Let's do a right click and go to move and copy. Should bring open a dialog box, and it says, where do you want to move this sheet before, right? I want to move it before layout 2, and then I'm going to tell it to create a copy. Once I do that and hit OK, it should create another sheet here. Let's go ahead and select this one. I'll do a right click and go to rename. And then I'll rename this to sheet 2. All right. The other benefit of this is you see that everything is already situated the way I like it. Let's go ahead and delete my parts list here. I'll just type in enter and then go ahead and select that. And let's go ahead and select our multi-leaders as well. Okay. All right, so now those are gone. Let's go ahead and select our top plate and just deal with strictly the top plate. So the way that we're going to do this is we'll go back to the Layout tab. I'm sorry, I should go to the Home tab. Then I'll select Base from Model Space, and it's going to once again assume that I want to select everything. I'll select the Model Space selection, and then I'll say, hey, what do I want to select here? Remember that if you hold down the Shift button, you can deselect. So I'll do that, and now I only have this view. Once I have that okay, let's go ahead and hit Return to Layout. And now you're going to only see the top of this, right? Let's go ahead and take a look at the top view. And this is what I'm going to see. All right, let's go ahead and make this just a hair bigger. Yep, 2 times is fine with me. Let's go ahead and click here, hit Enter, come down and create this one. Oh, it looks like it's actually upside down. Let's go ahead and place it here. And this is where I'm trying to look at where my orientation is. Let's go ahead and escape out of that first, and let me go back to doing that. So go back to the base, Model Space, Model Selection, hold down the Shift button, deselect the bottom one, and I'm looking at this correctly. That is my top view, right? Okay. So top view, return to Layout. Go ahead and make this twice as big. And let's go ahead and start it at this location. Let's see what happens. So let's go left click here. Go ahead and hit Enter. And then if I go here, go ahead and hit Enter. Let's see what we got. Okay. So now this is where one of those things I have to remember, and it almost got me here for a second here, is that I am using a first angle projection, right? So remember that with first angle projection, this is the top view, right? Or whatever view you want to call this one. But when I look at things, so if I want to look at the top view of this one is actually going to be at the bottom. So let's go ahead and delete this real quick. And I'll go back to, let's see, Layout here. I'll select this view first, then I'll choose Projected. So if I want the top view of this one, it's actually going to be at the bottom of it. All right. So that's the one good thing about if you set it up correctly, and every now and then it'll get me because I'm so used to doing everything in third angle projection, is that this is a first angle projection object that I am creating. Let's go ahead and see what an isometric looks like. So I'll go back here, I'll select this view, project, and then I'll go up here in the corner, and I'll go ahead and click this way. I just did a right click and hit Enter. Okay. With this one, let's go ahead and make it on a shaded with visible. So I'll go ahead and take it off from this parent. Let's go ahead and make it shaded with visible. And if I wanted to adjust the scale, I can use anything I want. And remember that we do have the option to use a custom scale as well. And the way that I usually get to that is I'll select the object, select this, let's see, select, wait a minute, I lost myself here for a second. I can select Customize. Come on, and I'm waiting on it to bring open a dialog box, and looks like it's not going to show it. All right, so I can go here. Let's see what edit looks like. It usually gives me the words at the bottom, and there we go. And I can hit scale, and then we can adjust it however we want to. But in our case, let's go ahead and leave it at this point. And then let's go ahead and put a section running through this. So here's another thing that I haven't showed you how to do in many videos, but I can go to Section, select the view, I'm just going to touch and track off of this one, do a left click, and I'll go this direction. Let's go ahead and turn our ortho back on and say that we want to create a section running through here. After I'm done with the 2 points, go ahead and hit the enter button, give it a second, and it should create our section view of that, right? So let's go ahead and hit exit, and it should go ahead and create that for us. And once again, this is using that weird ISO, and I really shouldn't call it weird, just different format, right? And now this is also going to be one of those things that is locked on to this view. So if I'm trying to move this to where I need it to go, it's going to be locked on. If I'm not mistaken, you have to break it. And let's go to the edit view. Waiting on this dialog box to appear, and let's see, it's under one of these, and I'm trying to remember. Nope, orthogonal is okay. Hatch is okay. It's not annotation. It's not projections. It's not the scale. Okay, I'll find that here in a second. Alright, so but for right now, let's go ahead and move this up. Kind of in line with that one. And right when it dawned on me, I know that's in the properties is where I usually have to select this part at. So I need to bring open the properties window, and that's just going to be PR, enter. Then I need to go and select this view. And then over here in the properties windows is where you usually can break it from, right? So you can see that it has a view alignment here at the bottom. And then if I tell it to break it, so now it's on broken, it will allow me to move this. Let's turn the ortho off wherever I want to. Let's go ahead and move this text below it. Okay, and from here, all of the similar stuff will still apply to you. And some other stuff you might want to do is that you might want to have that line going across your whole entire section here. And the way that's controlled is up here underneath where it says metric 50. And if I select this icon here, it should bring open a dialog box. Let's go ahead and hit modify. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select the tab that says cutting plane. And then we'll just tell it to go ahead and show that. Go ahead and hit OK and then close. And now you're going to get that line that goes across. Another thing that you can do is come back to that, and if I want to change what line type that is, and it's underneath the same stuff here. So if I go back to modify and I go to the cutting edge, you can see that the line type is continuous, right? But if I go and I tell it to choose other, it's going to bring open something that I want to load. And you know, ISO standards, they are different. I don't know if they use phantom lines or center lines, but in our case, let's just go ahead and create it as a phantom line just to show you that you can do that as well. Go ahead and hit OK, then hit the phantom line, and then it will load it there. So when I go back and close this, it should automatically update that to a phantom line, right? The rest of the stuff is kind of straightforward here, right? So if we're going to go to the annotation here, we can do our center marks. And remember, some of the same stuff would apply here. We would, you know, you can go back and take a look at the 2D drafting video where I actually set these up on the right layers and do things of that nature. But for this video, I'm just kind of getting you exposed to basically doing this using the ISO standards, right? So I'm not going to do that much dimensional work on this one. You can always refer back to the other video if that's something that you really want to see, is how to dimension this and maybe even establish this on the correct layers and stuff of that nature, right? But for what we need to do here is just go ahead and keep putting all of these sections in. I'll just go ahead and hit the enter button as opposed to keep going up to the top. And remember that the enter button, all it does is just repeat the last command. Let's go ahead and set up the dimension style though, so I will do that. Let's go ahead and select this icon here. What that should open is the dialog box. We're using the ANSI standard 0.25. Let's go to modify. And then you know I always start from the right to the left, right? So here's my primary units. I'll go ahead and select it here. And we're going to have that go ahead and suppress that trailing zero, which is something that we typically do. If you don't like the separator being a comma, you can change that here, so you can have it as a period. So that's one of the things that if you're wanting to kind of mix it up and do things of that nature. Underneath the fit, we're going to leave this alone. This is something that we typically do anyway because we're using paper space, so leave this set to 1. Alright, the text height, and this is where we're going to adjust the text and things of that nature. Once again, I like all my text horizontal, and I still like it centered no matter what. And these are just things that you can change. Remember, I'm using the ISO standards here. And then we'll have here, right? So we can take a look at removing this center mark since we went through and put the center lines on. And like I said, this is all standard stuff that we typically do anyway, right? So these are going to be typically the ones that I want to adjust, and I can just kind of go back through them really quick, just making sure I'm not forgetting anything. And it looks like everything should be fine and good to go. Oh, the last thing here is that line that's going back from the center here. We can take that off by just checking this box here, right? So do you want that line to appear or don't? That's all that this one is going to show. Go ahead and hit OK. And then let's go ahead and put some basic dimensions on this thing, right? So let's do a quick linear dimension from here to here. And I can adjust the size of this if that's something that you want. Remember that you can adjust that into the fit. So for example, that these look a little small to me. Let's go ahead and go back to the dimension style dialog box. Let's go and choose modify. And then what we're going to do inside of this modify is that we're going to go to the fit tab. Let's go ahead and make this twice as big. Hit OK. And then hit close, and it should automatically adjust these, right? So if you want those to show up just a little bit bigger, I can do that as well. Let's go and hit the overall length on this one. I want it to be in line with here, so I usually just select that endpoint. Let's go ahead and give it a height. And all I'm doing is just selecting these two endpoints because I know I want that to give me that overall height. And then I can also put in that kind of the height of this, right? Because that's going to be something separate. So I'll choose linear. And this time I want that dimension to be at the top. I know it's going to be small here, so I'll select this endpoint first. Then I'll go to that endpoint. And once I come this way, it should put your dimension here at the top. And then we got some radial dimensions that are going on here. So all of these are just kind of radial dimensions. And once again, all of this stuff acts exactly the same, and I'm just hitting the enter button, as we do in 2D. So all of this stuff is exactly what you'll see me do if you go and watch the 2D video. And kind of while I'm creating this stuff, I do want to thank all of the new subscribers that I am getting. I do appreciate you coming back and watching each of these videos, especially to the ones who are leaving me comments and things of that nature. That's kind of, you know, inspiring me, so to say, to do a little bit more videos for you guys and show you more and more stuff that you can do with this program, right? And just to kind of piggyback on that, what we're going to do in the next one is we're going to kind of build on this a little bit more. We're going to do this in Inventor just to show you some more different stuff or things that you might want to do. So if you've never seen an assembly video done in Inventor, that's going to be the one that you're going to want to watch. So if you're kind of curious about how to do things using that program, that'll be the one. Right. All right. So back into this, we can also put the, two places and things of that nature. And remember the way we do that. And let's find one that'll be a good candidate is I can double click on this, right? And it's going to bring me into the text editing dialog box. Just arrow over to the front of it and just type in 2x and a space. And you can hit the close, or you can also hit escape in this case, right? So, but I can do that around this. But now let's go ahead and jump over to the second part of this. And I see that this video is getting long, so that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm not trying to go through too many details. Otherwise, this would be probably an hour-and-a-half video. But anyway, let's go ahead and zoom the extents of this. And like we did with the one before it, I'll do a right-click on this, choose the Move Copy. And once we have the dialog box over, where do we want to move this before, right? I want to move it before Layout. number 2. Tell it to create a copy, and then hit OK. Go ahead and select it down here at the bottom. And then we're just going to erase all of this stuff. I'll go ahead and use a window going right across all of this. Hit delete on my keyboard. That takes away all of that. And then go ahead and rename it here at the bottom to sheet 3. Right? So right click on it, go to rename, and make it sheet 3. Alright, so I have this sheet now, and it's the same process of what we just did on the other sheet. So let's jump over to the Home tab. I'll choose Base for Model Space. Go ahead and select this option here. Go ahead and hold down the Shift button and deselect the top one in this case. Go ahead and return. And now you can see that this is the view that I want to create. I'll do a left click here. Go ahead and hit enter. And do another left click here and hit enter. Alright, so here are my 2 views. Let's go ahead and select this top view here, and we're going to adjust the scale of it. Let's go ahead and select the drop down here and make it 2:1. It should automatically adjust both of them. Let's move this over a hair, and then we're going to move this down. We're going to go ahead and create our isometric. So we'll select this top view here, choose the projected option. Remember the isometric for here will be coming downward. So you got to kind of trick your mind into thinking backwards. I'm just going to do a right click and hit enter. And you know we can go ahead and change all of this stuff that we typically do before. So I'll go ahead and select here. And then let's go ahead and make it here. Okay. So if there's something else, and I don't know if I ever showed you this before as well, if there's a detail or something that you want to, show out or highlight or something along that line, you do have a detail option here, right? So I can choose this detail option, and let's make it a rectangular option. And I'll just kind of show you how this here is really quick. So this is going to be my parent view. And then I'll go ahead and create the rectangle around it, and I keep forgetting that it is a center pick. Let's go back to that. So detail, rectangular, select the parent view, and remember that it's going to start off like by the center. And then I can kind of create that rectangle. Let's go ahead and place it up here. And I'll just hit the enter button. So you see that it does take a look at it here, right? It's one of those things that you can use as well. You have so many options that are kind of available to you. And then I can edit this, and I can, adjust the scale of this. Maybe even show it as jagged as opposed to being smooth on the end. So it really gives a kind of cutout of what's going on here. One other little neat feature that I do like is that you can connect it back. So you can have a detail where it's showing back to where it's connected to. But I do like the jagged approach to it. And then I'll adjust the scale down. Let's go ahead and select here and tell it that we want a scale of 3. And go ahead and tell it OK. Alright. So that's another one of those neat little features that you can use. Another thing that we can do is to control this one. It's going to be underneath in this tab. So kind of some of the similar stuff that we did before is once I select here, I can go and hit modify. Once again, the boundary. How do I want that boundary to look? Let's go ahead and make it on the same thing that we did before with the phantom lines. And let's see, one other thing. I like to kind of set both of these to that. Go ahead and hit OK. Go ahead and hit close. And you can see that it will select and make that boundary line look like that, right? Put this underneath it. Alright, and the other good thing is that your dimension styles does carry over. So if I wanted to create a dimension on here, it will carry over from the same style, meaning that I don't have to readjust what I've already done. And like I said, I'm not going to put any major dimensions on this one, but just dimensioned enough just so you can kind of see what's going on here, right? Alright, so I think that's probably more than enough to wrap it up on this video for you. Alright, so hopefully you enjoyed this video and you learned a little bit more about AutoCAD 3D. It really is a good software. It just takes up a lot more space and a lot more memory, but you can do some of the same things that you can do in some of your higher end 3D programs such as Inventor, SolidWorks, NX, or programs along that nature. But this works just as fine, but just remember that AutoCAD files are typically going to be a lot larger, and those programs handle things a lot better than this one would. But if you do have AutoCAD and you got simple 3D models, this works perfectly fine for what you need to create, right? So thank you for watching. Thank you for all of those who keep subscribing. And if you really stuck with me this long, you deserve a hand clap and an applause, right? So thank you once again for watching, and please keep continuing to watch and leave me a comment if there's something that I did wrong or you want me to elaborate on. All right. So I can't say it enough. Go ahead and thank you again for watching this, and I'll see you in the next one.